Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickinson, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be chatting to you, Rod.
It's been a busy week for you. Let's start with what happened Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, it's actually on 2 days. It's spot on. We have a Wellington Australia Day event and a Dubbo Australia Day event. And we made the decision last year to hold the Wellington event as a twilight event and then the Dubbo event on the actual day. That was because we were a little bit snookered by the federal government. The Department of Home Affairs had some certain rules in place that we couldn't change. Now, they've changed those rules subsequently, but we stuck with that program of running the Wellington Australia Day event as a twilight event. 6:30 p.m. on Thursday we ran that, and then Dubbo's Australia Day event was held at 8 a.m. on the Friday. Both were held to try and beat the heat, but it was pretty hard to beat the heat at that time of the year or this time of the year. So they were still fairly warm, but very well attended, very good events. I would estimate we had about 250 there at the Wellington event, and maybe not quite 500, but pretty close to 500 there at the Dubbo event. We had Reese Muldoon as our ambassador for Wellington. Reese is well known with some TV credits over the last 30 or 40 years for things like Secret Life of Us and McLeod's Daughters and House Husbands and a whole range of other particular TV shows and movies. He was quite well liked and had some good stories. And then we had Sam Cawthorne as our ambassador for Dubbo on the Friday. Sam does some motivational speaking, does some speaker mentoring for young people, but also tells a very funny story about when he first met Kevin Rudd back in 2009. And Sam has lost an arm in a car accident. And so when he first met Kevin Rudd, he was there at an award ceremony. He was the Young Tasmanian of the Year, had gone to the Young Australian of the Year awards, and he set it up so that as Kevin Rudd shook his hand, it was his fake arm, and Kevin walked away with Sam's hand in his hand, literally. So it was something that Kevin still talks about today as something being very memorable. So two great events there, very well attended, and I think events that really helped us talk about what a great place Australia is and also what a great place Dubbo Regional Council is.
Being on about both those things, fabulous places, Australia and the Dubbo Regional Council area. And people know it for a great sporting venue as well, very accommodating.
Very accommodating, and it's lovely when you get a major senior sporting event like an NRL match, which we've had before. But Dubbo's bread and butter seems to be lots of different junior events. And last week, perfect example, we had the Under-15 Girls State Cricket Carnival on. So there was cricket being played over the first 4 days of last week and very high-quality cricket. And again, very well attended. My estimation would be probably 500 people were in Dubbo as a result of that by the time you count the teams, the umpires, the various officials, the coaches that come along, plus the parents, and parents often come along with siblings as well. So great event there, and Cricket New South Wales loves bringing events to Dubbo. We've got high quality pitches, we've got lots of them, and they're all near each other, so it makes it very easy to organise an event. New South Wales Rugby's also got a rugby hub in Dubbo now. Council at the end of 2022 leased a building out to New South Wales Rugby, and so they hold various events. And over the weekend, over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they held under 14 and under 16 Rugby Girls Carnival. But they also had the New South Wales Rugby Waratahs women in Dubbo over the last week, and they were basing themselves in Dubbo but going out to various places around the region, so out to places like Gilgandra and Dubbo and Narromine and Wellington, doing some coaching clinics, just running some various events there just to keep promoting rugby, in particular women's rugby. I also caught up with Kerry Chikarovsky there. Now, you may remember Kerry was the leader of the Liberal Party way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. She's a very big advocate for female sport, and she's very involved with rugby, both for females and for all rugby across the state. So she was here promoting rugby as well, in particular rugby for women.
Very good for the region. Now, it's a region that has a bit of gold around.
A bit of gold around, and it's been known many, many years ago, probably 150 years ago, there was a bit of gold around the Wellington area. In fact, the first Dickinson that we can find that came to the area was back in 1849 when there was a Navy officer who came out to the area and was going to find his fortune in gold around the Ironbark/Stewarttown area. So a bit of history there, but the gold that's been around the area has been effectively mined using standards of yore. But now Alkane is looking at some areas around Kumabella Badengra area, so that's just outside of Wellington, where they know there's gold. There's been gold there in the past. But now as we've got more advanced mining techniques, more advanced processing techniques, they believe it might actually be worth going back and re-mining some of that area. So they're doing some core sampling over the next 2 months. You'll see Alkane out around those areas doing some core sampling just to see exactly the concentration of gold. If that all goes according to plan, then at some stage in the near future, we'll have a gold mine around that area. Keeping in mind there's going to be a lot of employment with our renewables. There'll be even more employment if all of that comes off. And then, of course, we've got the Toongai minerals mine as well, which again will add to the employment. So a pretty bright future for Dubbo.
Yes, and speaking of energy, Kerrs Creek.
Yeah, Kerrs Creek is down around the Wellington, even further really, probably down around the orange end of the local government area of the Dubbo Regional Council, LGA. And there's a wind farm that's going in there. And there's been a few questions coming from the public. So we've organised a public meeting. That'll be held tomorrow night, Tuesday night at 6 p.m. at the Ukarina Soldiers Memorial Hall. Anyone's invited to come along. It's really just going to be a public meeting, an information session, just to hear more about what's happening and a chance for people to ask questions and find out exactly what's going to be happening with the Kerrs Creek wind farm.
There was also excitement last week in regards to an announcement by Virgin.
It wasn't quite the announcement that some people thought it was. I had a few calls from different media outlets very excited about the fact that Virgin was going to start flying to Dubbo. Now, we'd love Virgin to start flying from Dubbo to various locations. We've met with Virgin several times in the past to talk to them about the possibility of having flights from and to Dubbo. They haven't quite gone there yet, and there's a whole range of logistical reasons why they haven't done that. What they did announce was a code-sharing arrangement between Virgin Airlines and Link Airways. Now, Link Airways already from Dubbo fly to and from Melbourne and Brisbane, so we've already got those areas being serviced by Link Airways. This isn't adding any flights, but the code-sharing arrangement means that you could go onto the Virgin website and book a flight from Dubbo to Melbourne, for example, or Dubbo to Brisbane, or vice versa. But you could also link straight into the Virgin network. So, for example, if you wanted to go to somewhere like Townsville, you could book all that flight on the Virgin website. You wouldn't need to then go to a different site to book one leg of that. You'd be able to look at that whole flight. Now, that sounds like a small extra bit of convenience, but the other thing that it will do is it will actually give Virgin more exposure in the Dubbo market. They'll be able to see more data from the Dubbo market. They might say, well, we might have another look at this Dubbo market and see what potential we've got there, and that might open up some more opportunities as well. So not quite as exciting as we first thought it might have been, but still a good step forward.
Definitely is. So this is Virgin and Airlink Airlines out of Dubbo?
Not Airlink. No, some people do get confused by that. So this is Link Airways. So Airlink is the airline that's been flying out of Dubbo for a long time, which now Rex owns, and that's more servicing some of the regional areas. Link Airways specifically runs from Dubbo to Melbourne and back, and Dubbo to Brisbane and back.
All right, and at the weekend you also made your way to Tamworth.
I did make my way to Tamworth. This was at the invitation of the Tamworth Mayor, Russell Webb. And we have a group called Regional Cities New South Wales. There are 15 cities that are in that group. I'm chairperson of that group. And one thing that we do often talk about when we have our meetings, we meet every quarter down at Parliament House in Sydney, is we talk about learning as much as we can from each other and sharing some of that knowledge and sharing some of that experience. So Russell actually invited me up there, invited a few other mayors. We ended up with 5 mayors there from the various cities around the area, and basically just look at the event, look at how they run it, just look at even just the process of shutting down the main street, a couple of blocks of the main street there, Peel Street's the main street, shutting that down, and what you have as a conversation with those shopkeepers and how you make sure it's worth their while. And the whole festival, it's fantastic there. It is a great event, and it's something that has taken a long time to build up. That was the 52nd Golden Guitar Awards that we went to on Saturday night, for example. So these things don't happen overnight. It's morphed, it's progressed, it's changed over that time frame, but now it is obviously a fantastic event for Tamworth. But it's great to share in that and learn as much as we can from each other. For example, next month I'll be going down to Bathurst for a race event there. Again, Mount Panorama. We're not trying to build a Mount Panorama in Dubbo, but can we learn from how they run that event and how important that is for their economy there? So it's all these things about how we can learn from each other and then hopefully benefit our own community. But I also think, Rod, that whenever a regional area does well in anything, then we all gain a benefit. So if people are coming from Sydney or coming from overseas, for example, to Tamworth, they're learning about regional New South Wales, and that's a benefit for all of us.
Yes, we've all got to work together, and you're doing that very well. Thanks for talking with us this morning.
Always my pleasure, Rod. We'll chat again in a couple of weeks.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.